Story 1. The Phantom Caller. It was a cold November night, and Claire was home alone. Her parents had gone on a weekend trip, leaving her in charge of the house. At 17, she was used to staying home by herself, so she wasn't particularly worried. She had plans to binge-watch her favorite TV show, order pizza, and relax. Around 8 p.m., Claire settled into the living room, the soft glow of the TV casting shadows on the walls. The wind howled outside, but inside, it was warm and cozy. She felt safe. As she reached for her phone to check if the pizza was on its way, it buzzed. The number was unknown, but she didn't think much of it. Maybe the delivery guy needed directions. She answered, "Hello?" Silence. "Hello?" she repeated, a bit more annoyed. Still nothing. She hung up, assuming it was a wrong number. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. This time, she didn't pick up. She didn't want to deal with prank calls or telemarketers. She silenced her phone and went back to her show. An hour passed. The pizza had arrived, and Claire was halfway through the latest season. Suddenly, her phone vibrated again, but this time it was a text from the same number. "I can see you." Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around the room, the hair on the back of her neck standing up. Was someone watching her? Was this a joke? She walked over to the window, peeking through the curtains, but the street outside was quiet, illuminated only by the flickering streetlights. Trying to shake off the feeling of dread, Claire blocked the number and went back to her couch. But she couldn't focus. Every little sound made her jump. The wind rattling the windows, the creak of the house settling. It all felt amplified in the silence. Her nerves were on edge. Then came the knock at the door. It was soft, almost hesitant. Claire froze. It was past 10 p.m. No one should be at her door. She tiptoed to the front hallway, her mind racing. Should she answer? What if it was the person texting her? What if it was worse? The knock came again, louder this time. Claire held her breath, inching toward the peephole. She hesitated before looking through it. There was no one there. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped away from the door. She checked her phone again. Another message. "Come outside." That was it. Claire called the police. While waiting for them to arrive, she locked all the doors and grabbed a kitchen knife, her mind racing with fear. She could still hear the wind howling outside, but now it seemed to carry an ominous weight. When the police arrived, they found no sign of anyone. The area around her house was clear, no tracks in the snow. The number that had texted her was untraceable, and whoever had knocked on the door had disappeared into the night. Claire never found out who or what had been tormenting her that night. But from that day on, she never stayed home alone without double-checking all the locks. Story 2. The Face in the Window. Max was a 15-year-old with a love for video games and late-night snacks. His parents had gone out for the evening, leaving him home alone, something he was quite used to. It was a quiet evening, and Max was fully immersed in his latest game when something unusual caught his attention. The kitchen light flickered. He glanced over his shoulder, brushing it off as an electrical glitch, and continued playing. But when the light flickered again, and stayed off this time, Max paused. The house felt a little too quiet now. Reluctantly, he got up to check the kitchen. As he walked through the hallway, his eyes scanned the dimly lit room. The kitchen was empty, nothing out of place. Max sighed in relief and turned the light switch back on. It worked just fine. With a shrug, he grabbed a snack from the fridge and made his way back to his room, dismissing the incident. But as he was walking down the hallway, something caught his eye. The reflection in the hallway mirror. A face. Max froze, his heart hammering in his chest. He whipped around, but no one was there. He stared at the mirror, his breath shallow. The face had been pale, with wide, empty eyes staring directly at him. His mind raced. Was it his imagination? Was he just seeing things? He quickly went back to his room and locked the door. He wasn't sure what he had seen, but he didn't want to find out. Max tried to focus on his game, but every noise made him jump. The creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the clock, it all felt amplified in the stillness of the night. And then, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Slowly, Max turned toward the window beside his desk. His room was on the second floor, and outside there was nothing but the empty backyard. Yet, standing just outside the window was the face he had seen in the mirror. Max's blood ran cold. The figure outside was grinning, its pale skin glowing in the faint moonlight, its wide eyes locked on him. But how was it possible? No one could be standing there. His room was too high up. He backed away, his legs trembling, and grabbed his phone. He dialed his parents in a panic, but the call went straight to voicemail. Desperate, Max called 911, his voice shaking as he explained the situation. The operator assured him that help was on the way, but Max didn't feel any safer. When the police arrived, they found no one outside. No footprints, no signs of anyone having been there. The officers searched the entire property, but there was nothing. They chalked it up to Max's imagination or a prank, but Max knew what he had seen. For weeks after that night, Max refused to stay home alone. Even now, years later, he can't shake the memory of the face at the window, wondering if it was a prank or something much darker. Story 3. The Watcher in the Attic. Emily had just moved into a quaint old house in a small town. The house had charm, creaky floors, a stone fireplace, and an attic. She had always loved the idea of having an attic, imagining it filled with old treasures or forgotten memories from previous owners. One evening, while home alone, Emily decided to explore the attic. She climbed the narrow staircase, the wood groaning beneath her feet, and pushed open the door. The attic was dusty, filled with boxes and old furniture covered in sheets. The air was thick and musty, but Emily felt a sense of curiosity as she began to sift through the forgotten belongings. As she rummaged through a box of old photos, she heard a noise behind her. It was faint, like something shifting. She froze, listening closely. But the attic was silent. She brushed it off as the house settling and continued exploring. But then she heard it again, this time louder. A distinct creaking, like footsteps. Emily turned, her heart pounding. The attic was empty. She told herself it was nothing and quickly left, closing the door behind her. But the uneasy feeling lingered. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. Objects in the house would be moved. Doors would open on their own. And at night, Emily would hear soft creaking sounds coming from above her. The attic. One night, as she lay in bed, the noises grew louder. It sounded like someone was walking around in the attic. Emily sat up, fear gripping her. She knew she was alone in the house, but the footsteps continued, slow and deliberate. Gathering her courage, Emily grabbed a flashlight and made her way to the attic door. Her hands shook as she turned the knob. The creaking from above stopped abruptly. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up into the darkness. "Is someone there?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no answer. But then, from the shadows of the attic, came a soft, eerie laugh. Emily ran back to her room, locking the door behind her. She called the police, her heart racing. When they arrived, they searched the entire house, including the attic, but there was no one there. After that night, Emily moved out. She couldn't stay in the house any longer, haunted by the sound of footsteps in the attic and the laughter that still echoed in her mind. These 3 terrifying home alone experiences remind us that sometimes the things we fear most aren't just in our heads, whether it's a strange caller, an eerie face at the window, or something lurking in the attic. The unknown can be far more terrifying than any fictional monster.